Good morning. We're going to continue with step 2 here from the Codependents Guide to the 12 Steps. Step 2 is my favorite because of the sanity clause. When I question God's existence or involvement, this step assures me that grace happens. Step 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 2 of CODA. I love the second step. When I began recovery from codependency, I was devastated by the behavior of people around me. I had abandoned my own life and myself. The things I was doing to make people see the light were insane. I was out of control. After I surrendered to the first step by accepting and admitting my powerlessness and unmanageability, the second step brought fresh air and hope. Now, I've been recovering for a while, but I still love this step. On those days when I forget what I know about recovery, when my mind whirls, when shame returns, when anger, resentment, or old messages begin controlling me, when I forget it's okay to be who I am, and that it's okay to own my power, when I panic or become fearful, when I start obsessively looking to others to make me feel or make me real, I know what to do. I go back to the first step to get my bearings and remember who I am. Then I go on to the second step to become all I'm capable of becoming. The second step puts us on a track, a new track, a course that holds more power and direction than we have on our own. It is the transition step. It takes us from where we are to where we want to go. All we are asking to do now is believe. In fact, all we are asked to do is come to believe. We do that by opening our minds and hearts and connecting with other recovering people. And page 31 begins with restored to sanity. Sarah is a striking woman who dresses colorfully and speaks with a strong East Coast accent. 6 years ago, her life and relationships were out of control. Today, she has a good relationship with herself and is director of a codependency treatment program. Sarah began her recovery journey 16 years ago by attending 12-step meetings of Overeaters Anonymous. Although she worked hard at that recovery program, something was missing in her life. I came in as an overeater, then picked up bulimia and anorexia. I became a sex addict, a relationship addict, and a pill addict, Sarah said. I lost my excess weight. I looked good, but I felt empty. As I had many times before, I thought that emptiness had something to do with things outside of myself. My husband was an alcoholic. Excuse me. My husband was an alcoholic. My friends in Overeaters Anonymous said I had the best of both worlds. I was married, and I was also out there having affairs with vulnerable men in the program. I felt empty, lonely, ashamed, and guilty. But I didn't know then what shame and guilt were. I now call it the hole in the soul complex, Sarah said. 7 years later, the first crash came in Sarah's life. She was placing her mother in a nursing home and preparing to ask her husband for a divorce because she was having a hot and heavy affair. The night she was going to ask him for a divorce, she had a heart attack on the dance floor. She promised God that if God helped her live through this, she would make some changes in her life. Oh, Sarah did make some changes. She stayed with her husband and went on to become addicted to alcohol, sleeping pills, and Xanax, the tranquilizer her doctor prescribed to help her heart condition. Before long, she began having affairs again. I was still attending Overeaters Anonymous, Sarah said. I used pills, food, and alcohol, and I was silently screaming for help in the OA meetings. People thought I was doing so well. I wouldn't divulge exactly what was going on in my life, but I would get up at meetings and say, "I'm hurting. There are problems in my life. Pinch me. I'm real. I hurt." I think people were frightened about what was happening to me. They didn't want to think I could be recovering that long and excuse me, and still have problems. They didn't know what to say to me. Then Sarah attended school to be an alcoholism and drug recovery counselor. She separated from her husband and had an affair with one of the patients. When he was discharged, he moved in with her. He was black. Sarah was white, a fact she said further isolated her from people. Soon her boyfriend began using cocaine again. Wiley dog. Can you maybe stop? Do you need some water? What's going on with all that licking, buddy? I don't know if everybody else can hear it, but I can hear it. We done? We done cleaning the seat and our feet? Like a cat? Are you finished? Okay. I'm gonna go on, alright? Alright. Soon her boyfriend began using cocaine again. It was insane, Sarah said. I was totally codependent, trying to save him and fix him. By the time I finished school to be an alcoholism counselor, I was drinking and using pills heavily. My boyfriend had been through 2 more treatment centers and was still using drugs. Sarah then checked herself into treatment for alcoholism and relationship addiction. After finishing treatment, she went to work at a treatment center for eating disorders, renewed her relationship with her cocaine addict boyfriend, and brought him to live with her in a southern town where she worked. Here we are. I am Jewish and white from the north, living with a black man in a southern town. I knew I had 3 strikes against me when I moved down there, but I said I was going to make it no matter what. Oh, I did make it, but I got caught up in the relationship again. My boyfriend kept relapsing. I was working at the treatment center. I was clean, but not from the crazy relationship. There was physical and sexual abuse in the relationship, but I was the perpetrator, Sarah said. I was so full of rage and anger that each time he went into his crazy behavior, I'd go at him in such rage that it terrified me. I'd claw him and pull his shirt off. The only way he could stop me was by picking me up and holding me on the bed. In my insanity, I'd free myself from his hold, then I'd call the police on him. The police would take him away, and I'd take him back. Finally, Sarah checked herself into a codependency treatment center. The thing that got to me was the thought that I could purposefully hurt another human being, Sarah said. It was terrifying. I saw my mother in me, but I was worse than my mother. And I had always said, "Dear God, don't ever let me be like her." After codependency treatment, Sarah began attending CODA meetings and started private therapy sessions. If it wasn't for the 12-step program, I'd probably be dead today, Sarah said. I'd be insane if not dead. I've made my amends for the rage I showed towards my boyfriend, and he truly is an ex now. I am not in a relationship, and I haven't been, but I believe I could have a healthy relationship excuse me, with someone today because I have a healthy relationship with myself. I've established good relationships with my children and made amends to them. They haven't changed, but I have. I see them differently. Hang on, let me get a little drink. Today's coffee is from Quick Trip, where they have dramatically raised their prices. But the coffees are good, and the people are nice. Okay, I've opened my own... I've established good relationships with my children and made amends to them. They haven't changed, but I have. I see them differently. I've opened my own center for codependency treatment because I see it as the prevention for relapse of other addictions. I believe that I was codependent long before I was any of the other things, Sarah said. I know that I, and nobody else, am responsible for what I think and feel. I believe in me and what I'm doing today. If I believe in me, then I can believe in what I'm doing. I used to seek validation from everybody and everything. I'd go to 10 people and ask them if what was going on with me was okay. Today I don't need to do that. I trust myself. I know I am enough. Sarah is one person whose life has been transformed by working the 12 steps on her codependency. She has been restored to sanity. Although the details of our insanity and how we define being restored to sanity vary, there are millions like Sarah who have taken this step and have seen its power to work. After 5 years of working at his 12-step program of recovery, Craig has been transformed from a frightened, angry, insecure man to a confident, peaceful, relaxed man. Craig is an adult child of an alcoholic and is also an incest victim. He is now able to express feelings. He has close friends. His biggest complaint before recovery was feeling isolated and disconnected from people. That is also the area in his life where he feels he has been restored to sanity. Still looks good. Nope. Darn it. All right. Looking at the flooded water. Although we share codependency issues, each of us has a personal version of how codependency manifested itself in our lives and what being restored to sanity even means. 10 years ago, Jane was on the verge of emotional collapse. Her father was an alcoholic, but no one in the family, including her father or herself, had identified his problem as alcoholism. Jane was chronically depressed, crying or on the verge of tears most of the time. She overate, withdrew from people, and couldn't bring herself to look for work or hold a job. She spent years living a hand-to-mouth existence in an efficiency apartment, believing she deserved no better. I felt afraid constantly, but I didn't know that's what I was feeling, Jane said. My fear expressed itself more as, I don't want, I don't want, I don't want. Nothing interested me. I didn't think about suicide, but I hated where I was in life. I felt that my life would never change. I kept wanting to go completely crazy. I never did, but I thought it would feel good because then I could express all the stuff inside me. I didn't know that's exactly what I needed to do. Then Jane began attending 12-step meetings. First, she attended Overeaters Anonymous. Group members soon suggested she needed Al-Anon. At first, Jane didn't understand why people thought she needed Al-Anon. She didn't understand what being codependent meant. Now, 10 years later, Jane's life has changed, and she understands. I feel at home. I feel safe at my groups and with myself, said Jane. It was hard, it was a struggle, but slowly my hope came back. My wanting for life and myself came back. Jane obtained a master's degree and works full-time for a government agency. She has a nice home, a car, and herself back. Her beliefs about what she deserves from work, relationships, and life have changed. Although she is still struggling with relationships, she has finally found the courage to participate in one and works toward getting her needs met. She has a support system and feels connected to people and herself. The biggest thing the 12 steps have done is put me in conscious contact with the empowerment, the freedom, and the goodness of my own life. The hardest thing for me to grasp is that I'm not in control of others, how they feel, what they do, and how they respond to me. I'm learning what it means to love and care about someone I have no control over. I want people to be like, so I can feel safer, acknowledged, and affirmed. I want people to be like me, so I can feel safer, acknowledged, and affirmed. To me, recovery is about feeling safe with myself. By keeping open to the steps and figuring out what they mean to me, surprises are revealed to me. The 12 steps have been a structure, a container, not a container that binds me, but one that allows me to feel safe while I discover the various mysteries in life. Dan is a minister. His codependency issues centered around not being able to express anger in his marriage, not setting limits with clients, and not seeing the good in himself. I attracted sick and needy people, Dan said. I was a wonderful listener who couldn't set limits with people. They just lopped onto me. Dan's idea of being restored to sanity was learning balance, expressing his anger appropriately without becoming either enraged or passive, balancing listening, which he considers a gift, with the ability to assert himself, and noticing his gifts and strengths as well as his faults. The steps help me be more in touch with who I am, what I want, and what I need, said Dan. Crazy things still happen to me, Dan said, but I'm learning to respond sanely. My recovery program continually reminds me that life is good. It surprises me with goodness and change. I've seen some people much more wounded and bruised than I am, making amazing progress in their recoveries. It gives me a lot of hope for my own recovery. Not only do we each have our own ideas of what it means to be restored to sanity, but these ideas may change as we change. In the beginning of recovery, I needed to be restored from chasing alcoholics around, trying to make them stop drinking, to the sanity of living my own life. I needed to be restored from continual self-neglect to learning to pay daily, loving attention to myself and my needs. I needed to be restored from believing I had to and could control others to a place of letting go of others and allowing life to unfold. Sometimes I need to be restored from shame, fear, and suppressed feelings to peace, confidence, and good feelings about myself. Sometimes I need to be restored from negative, hopeless thoughts to a positive, hopeful outlook. Sometimes I get stuck and need help extricating myself, or I get obsessed and need my mind and my soul back. Sometimes I revert to believing that others hold the key to my happiness and destiny, and then I need help remembering that I possess that key. Other times, my insanity means I hold back, cowering within myself. I need my fears healed so that I can live life, be fully alive, and trust the flow. My idea of being restored to sanity centers around owning my power in relationships, learning how not to let others have all the power, learning not to allow others to control me, no matter how healthy or well-intentioned the people I'm dealing with. To me, sanity is when I am at peace with myself and take care of myself with others instead of taking care of them. Living with insanity or allowing others to treat us badly, living life as victims, is insane. Living in denial, telling ourselves other people are fine, people who are abusing us and treating us poorly, telling ourselves that there is something wrong with us for not liking this abuse, is insane. Believing that we deserve so little from life is insane. Believing that we have to do it alone, whatever it is unnecessary. Many of us find that as our recovery progresses, our definition of sanity changes. Initially, many of us come to recovery thinking that it is reasonable to repress our feelings, dislike ourselves, stay immersed in shame, and feel trapped and hopeless. We may come to recovery thinking it normal that people endure being alive and slog through a miserable form of existence. We may think it's normal to deny and deprive ourselves. We may think expecting perfectionism of ourselves is reasonable. We may look upon victimization as a normal day-to-day event, a reasonable reaction to most of life's circumstances. But this viewpoint changes for many of us when we begin to identify those past behaviors as codependent. Later, we may look upon any return to the unpleasant and negative thought patterns and emotions that accompany codependency as undesirable and a reason to use this step. We do not blame ourselves or expect to be free of tangles. Tangles can be beneficial and growth-producing. We do not look upon emotions as insanity, but rather as healthy expressions of healthy living. But most of us prefer to stay balanced. In fact, feeling good, and for us that means feeling all of our emotions, eventually begins to feel good. It eventually begins to feel good. Some of us are looking for more from this step and from recovery as a whole than being restored. Many of us feel that we have never experienced the kind of life we want for ourselves. We feel we are beginning for the first time to develop a manner of loving and living that is healthy. This program can do that for us. It can restore us if we are seeking restoration. It can also make us new. All right. Keeps going, loves. Came to believe. We do not begin by believing a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity. We work into it. We grow into our belief. We come to believe. Hang on. All right. We come to believe. I wasn't alive when I started attending Al-Anon, said Margaret. I was emotionally and spiritually dead. I didn't know how I felt. I was abusive and I was being abused. A friend introduced me to Al-Anon. I found many bones to pick with the 12-step program, but I found something to hang on to. So I kept coming to meetings because of step 2. I didn't believe, and I needed to be restored to sanity. I felt insane. I wanted to be healed and restored, so I faked it and kept coming until I believed, until the restoration began. Many of us find that we come to believe by seeing other people with problems similar to ours restored to sanity as a result of working these steps. For us, seeing is believing. And coming to meetings is how we come to believe. I learned how to let go by watching others who were dealing with the same type of problems and noticing that they looked okay. They were doing something to deal with it better. I drew strength from their strength, said Stanley, the architect whose life had been controlled by an addicted son for 16 years. I didn't know there was any other way to react, to live life, or to feel until I began listening to other people who had been recovering from codependency. I saw others with similar circumstances, behaving in a sane manner, looking happy and healthy. When I saw it, I could believe it. Initially, all I could do was believe it had worked for them. Slowly, I came to believe that recovery could work for me. I believed because I saw other people. Then I believed because I began to see small changes in myself. Seeing other people change, seeing the steps work in their lives, seeing their lives restored to manageability, peace, and joy is how we come to believe that it is possible for us. Sometimes listening to stories of how others have been changed in major ways helps us. Sometimes listening to the smaller words of wisdom, the daily examples of how others are learning to take care of themselves and live life differently, can be just as important. We get our messages in many ways. Many of us have little difficulty working this step once we begin attending meetings. It is difficult not to come to believe if we watch and listen. It was revolutionary to me that people could actually behave differently from the ways I had. I thought I had to control. I felt trapped in my depression. This step was a step out of my darkness and my codependency. It was my step into healing and learning I had choices. Perhaps the greatest offering of this step is that no matter what we want and need done in our lives, we do not have to do it by ourselves. We don't have to use our will to change ourselves. For once, we don't have to try so hard. We can turn to a power greater than ourselves. All right, the next part is a power greater than ourselves. We don't have to begin with a complex understanding of a power greater than ourselves. We don't have to begin with detailed ideas about what we want accomplished in our lives and how that should happen. We don't even have to know what we're going to be doing tomorrow. We can start where we are, with whatever amount of belief or disbelief we have at this moment. We start by believing that we can and will be restored to sanity. Whether that restoration is a brief event, such as handling a momentary feeling, or a larger event, such as the restoration we need when we begin recovery or go through a traumatic experience. We open ourselves to the help, loving care, guidance, and power of God. We come to believe we will be healed and that the tools we need to be healed will come into our lives. Our faith is not misplaced when we come to believe that recovery will work for us. God was inserted into this program of recovery because God is fundamental to recovery and fundamental to the psychic and soul level change and healing that we're seeking. We do certain things to change, but essentially, we are changed. It is a spiritual process. The decision to refer to God as a power greater than ourselves and to allow people to develop their own understanding of this power was intentional. This program is spiritual, not religious. The steps were written to be compatible with all religious and denominational beliefs. They were also intended to be accessible to those without religious or denominational beliefs. Many of us come to recovery with contorted, fearful, and sometimes rigid and shame-based understandings of God. We may fear God. We may fear that God despises us or has abandoned us. We may have had unpleasant dealings with certain religious denominations. Some people come to this program because a religious system had the same destructive impact on them as a dysfunctional family system. Great care must be taken to allow individuals the freedom to explore and determine their own spiritual beliefs. Because of the great amount of physical and sexual abuse that many of us have suffered, some 12-step programs have removed any gender reference to God. Some people don't want to identify God as a male gender being. Some don't want to refer to God as a female gender being. Some don't want to call God Father because of the abuse suffered at the hands of an earthly father. Okay, little bug, I don't know what you're doing, but you're in the wrong spot. There we go. Thank you very much. Some don't want to call God Father because of the abuse suffered at the hands of an earthly father. Some of us are comfortable embracing a traditional concept of God. That's fine too. These steps allow us each to get our needs met by a God of our understanding. We can come to these steps with our fears, prejudices, needs, and desires and still find recovery. It is not our job to impose any religious, denominational, or spiritual beliefs on any other human being, nor do we need to accept another's beliefs. These steps were so confusing to me in the beginning, said Tim, who attends adult children of alcoholics meetings. I kept telling myself, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. Now I'm beginning to connect spiritually with these steps. I've learned that parents are representative. I have learned that parents are representative of God, and my parents were so dysfunctional that I had said, to hell with God. Now I'm using these steps to redo God in my life. Struggle with the higher power concept. Struggle all you need to. Most of us have to. Struggle until you find your higher power and know your God cares about the largest and most minute details of your life. When we take this step, we begin to learn through personal experience. Then others come to believe through our example of how we have been healed and helped. This program is a never-ending chain of healing. By believing and staying open to this healing process, we will become changed in a natural, manageable fashion. This is the most exciting part of recovery for me. It's also a part I need to remember. I don't have to force or control my recovery. I can do my best work. I can do my best to work the steps and peacefully allow change to happen. We can use this step to help us get through difficult situations around us, within us, or both. We can use this step to help us come to believe that we can develop a sane, loving approach to ourselves, life, and others. No matter what our past or present circumstances, this step means we no longer have to limit our futures by our pasts. And a couple more pages. Stay with me. Okay, the hope step. Once upon a time, I found myself in treatment for chemical dependency issues. My life was a mess. I was a mess. When I finally faced and accepted that fact, despair overwhelmed me. Years later, I found myself facing my codependency. Again, my life was unmanageable. I was depressed and embroiled in rage and self-hatred. I was consumed with thoughts of controlling others. The idea of focusing on myself and my own issues was foreign to me. It made no sense at all. After spending years denying reality, I finally began to see, admit, and accept the truth. I had lived with and around crazy people so long, I had become one of them. My illusion of moral superiority was becoming more difficult to maintain. In spite of momentary bursts of feeling more sane than those around me, in truth, I suspected I was crazy too. Both times, in both those periods of absolute despair that had been created by accepting reality, this second step gave me hope and light. Both times this step occurred to me. It happened to me through no effort of my own. When I was about to begin recovery from chemical dependency, a person came to me who had problems similar to mine and had been restored to sobriety and sanity. I recalled thinking that it was possible. It could happen. It happened to her. Maybe it could happen to me. When I began recovering from codependency, people brought me the message of this step. I was in a group of recovering people, and although I was in a crabby, distressed state, I saw out of the corner of my eye cheerful, peaceful people who looked healthy and happy, even though they had lived through similar or worse circumstances than mine. A small part of me registered this. It is possible, I thought. Those people are handling the same situation that I'm facing, only they're handling it differently. Maybe that could happen for me. Now I come joyfully to this step when I have the presence of mind to remember to practice it. And for me, practicing it means simply thinking about it. I let it pass through my mind and give it whatever degree of validity I can at the moment. I use it when old, negative beliefs and fears begin to control my life. I use it when I get tangled up in my shame and self-hatred and begin seeking a way to tunnel into the dark recesses of myself. I use it when I get absorbed in other people and their issues, what they're doing or not doing, and how angry or hurt that makes me feel. I have learned to accept my anger and hurt, but dwelling on them to the point of losing focus with myself, dwelling on them to the point of obsession, dwelling on others to the degree that I lose my balance and my thoughts are not my own, can be a form of insanity in my life. I no longer want to lose my balance, at least not for long. I take this step. I think about it for a moment. After identifying that my life has again become unmanageable, on whatever level, this step still brings me hope. It tells me I can and will be restored to sanity. It tells me I do not and cannot restore myself. I love to control and manage, not because I am bad and defective, but because I am protective and feel so afraid of letting go. But I can't restore myself. I must muster enough faith and humility to trust that a power greater than myself can and will do this for and with me. I have learned that this faith is well placed, far better placed than looking to my own resources. There is a gentleness, a harmonic flow that sweeps me up after I take this step. It sweeps me into a way out of my confusion, even when I cannot see that way. It takes me out of my internal chaos and my stubborn insistence that I must continue in the old way, even though that way is destroying my spirit. It opens me to a better way. When I tire of efforts that do not work, when I am hopeless, when I am tangled up in unmanageability or compulsive efforts to control something that I cannot, then I become ready to take this step. I become ready to accept and admit the truth that I am powerless. Things appear unmanageable, either in work, family relationships, love, finances, or any area of my life. And it's time to come to believe. It's time to turn to a power greater than myself for help. I've been using this step for 17 years now. It has never failed to work for me. In fact, I'm not certain that I turn to this step. I'm not certain that I turn to this step. Often it turns to me. It settles into my awareness like a gift, a way out of my chaos, like a loving father saying, "Child, would you like to try this? It might help you feel better." The thought comes gently, sometimes in the form of, "Why don't I get myself to a meeting?" Sometimes it appears as a friend calling, gently talking about the program. Sometimes I pick up the phone and call someone. Sometimes it is a personal affair between the power and me. A tremendous battle takes place within me on a regular basis. That battle is between the part of me that insists that if I try harder, I can control things and extricate myself from any mess. And the part of me that knows there is a higher way, a way that will lift me to levels of thinking, feeling, and behaving beyond what I could accomplish on my own. This step works whenever I turn to it, whenever I let it. And sometimes when I don't turn to it, it finds me anyway. Breathe deeply. Believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity. Be grounded on that new level. By believing, we create the space for that to happen. Okay, wait a second. We stop empowering the problem and begin to empower the solution, one that will be given to us. Do not worry about how it will happen. Do not worry about when it will happen. All we need will be given to us and done for us. We are in the process of becoming changed. All we need to do is believe. Most of us find we don't have to work too hard at this step. Coming to believe is a gift. It will be given to us when we are ready for it, and we will receive as much belief as we can handle as we are ready. We are asked to have faith, not forever, but for one day. At times, we may need to take it 1 hour at a time. We believe that all is well, that all will be well, that things in the universe are on track, and we are right where we need to be for the moment. Transformation will take on a life of its own if we let it. Take care not to confuse unmanageability or insanity with the deep grief many of us experience when we come to this program. Many of us are facing losses and feel pain about these losses. This pain, this grief, is a healthy, normal response to our circumstances. We can allow ourselves to go through it without making ourselves miserable by blaming ourselves for grieving. The purpose of this program is to help us develop a sane, spiritual approach to any life situation, whether that means addressing insane or objectionable behavior in those around us or in ourselves, getting through unpleasant or painful situations, dealing with loss or change, functioning within the realm of normal situations, or creating a better normal for ourselves. This program can assist us in breaking off our unhealthy ties with others. It can teach us to have healthy connections to ourselves, our higher power, and other people. In the first step, we surrendered to powerlessness. That was the beginning. Now we are on the way to becoming empowered by a power greater than ourselves. This power responds quickly and greatly to the slightest movement forward, smallest indication of belief on our part. Sometimes all we have to do is go to a meeting or think about this step. We will be restored. We will be renewed. We will be lifted out of our present circumstances and into a solution, whether that involves a change of heart, a change of attitude, a new path, a new feeling, or a new vision of what we are to do. Sometimes this happens quickly. Sometimes it takes a while. Open ourselves to the belief that a new and better way will appear, and it will. Open ourselves for one moment to the possibility that a higher power can create a new way, or a new situation, or a solution. And we have set the stage for that to happen. Open ourselves to the possibility that we can be restored, and we shall begin that journey. For many of us, taking the first step facing and admitting the unmanageability, pain, and loss in our lives felt dark and hopeless. The second step takes us out of the darkness and into the light of hope and promise. This step offers hope, not the false hope of many of us, not the false hope many of us have clung to for years, but real hope in a real recovery. Take it whenever we need to. Here is the activities for this chapter, and then we're done. There are 6 of them, and we are on page 45. Number 1, what are the activities that bring you hope and help you believe things are okay and will be okay? Is it going to meetings? Is it talking with recovering people? Is it reading recovery literature? Name those who have helped you to believe the most in your future. Number 2, how have your ideas changed about what it means to be restored to sanity? Have your expectations about recovery changed? What do you expect from recovery now that is different from what you expected when you first began recovering? Number 3, for now, how do you define a power greater than yourself? Do you believe that power cares about you? Number 4, what is an unreasonable plan of self-care for you to help? Okay, that's totally wrong. Number 4, what is a reasonable plan of self-care for you to help you continue to believe that recovery can and will work for you? Look again at your ideas in question 1 above, which is what are the activities that bring you hope and help you believe things are okay and will be okay? Is it going to meetings? Is it talking with people? Is it reading literature? Okay. So, number 5, what has been done for others in recovery that you would like to happen for yourself? Do you believe this is possible? And the final one, number 6, make a list of the areas in your life where you would like to be restored. Your goals will be more effective if they center around restoring your own life rather than someone else's. All right. The next one will be step 3, and I have been reading to you from this lady's book. I am very thankful for your time and attention. I appreciate you.